Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to NEWSROOM. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is Monday, the 22nd of August, 2022. This show today, we are going to dedicate to the rains, the monsoons, the floods, the effects of those floods and monsoons, the devastation that has been caused across Pakistan, whether it be in Balochistan, in Sindh, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in Punjab. We still hear of stories of devastation of people who've lost their lands, who've lost their houses, their cattle, lives of their family members. There are stories that need to be highlighted, there are stories that need to be remembered, and there are matters that need to be taken into hand, like the current government is taking with the NDMA, with the PDMA, with the army, with the Pakistan Air Force, as well as the local bodies and the people of the areas, to come together as one, to work so that what we've seen this year does not happen next year. The devastation, a large part of it we cannot control because it is related to the environment, to climate change, but there are things that we can and we need to, and we inshallah will. We will discuss the different aspects of these monsoon rains, the devastation that has been caused and what needs to be done in detail. But before that, let's watch a short report on the rains and the havoc that it has caused.
A wave of death and destruction is unfolding in Pakistan as climate change becomes a reality of the contemporary world. The 2022 monsoon season has been exceptionally challenging for Pakistan as the country recorded 385% higher rainfall in Sindh, 371% higher rainfall in Balochistan, according to Pakistan Met Department. The unseasonably high rainfall had been preceded by back-to-back heat waves, which created the conditions necessary for the disaster that later unfolded. Raging flooding along with relentless rains killed dozens across Pakistan over the past few days, aside from inundating large swathes, washing away infrastructures and triggering landslides. Hundreds of thousands of people have been directly affected by flooding caused by torrential downpours across the country. Meanwhile, the NDMA advised all concerned provincial and federal ministries and emergency departments to ensure prior arrangements to cope with flash floods. Government agencies and the army have set up aid and relief camps in flood-hit regions and are working to help relocate families and provide food and medicines. Prime Minister has directed the authorities concerned to utilize all the resources for resettlement of the flood victims. Pakistan has long ranked among the most climate vulnerable countries in the world, according to Global Climate Risk Index, which tracks the devastating human and economic toll of extreme weather events. Climate resilience must be the defining feature of any rehabilitation and reconstruction work done by the government to ensure minimum damage by climate-induced disasters.
Rains, monsoons, devastation, climate change, environment protection, and many, many more facets to the destruction that we have seen across the country in these last few weeks. We are going to discuss that and the different aspects of that and what needs to be done to mitigate the plight of the people, not now but also for the future. We've been joined in the studios by Abdullah Deol. He is a water scientist at UNESCO and also a specialist in flood risk management. Thank you very much, Abdullah, to have joined us. Abdullah, first of all, what I'd like to understand is how much of these rains, these monsoons that we've seen and the devastating rains, the percentage we've seen is more than 350%, more than that in Sindh and in Balochistan. What do you attribute it to? Is it due to climate change? Is it due to a normal environmental, devastation? Is it due to other factors that have also aggravated the current situation?
First of all, I would like to thank you for having me on the show. And it's a really good question and actually a very open-minded question. Some people just emphasize that it's just climate change. But there are certain things. Some things are because of climate change and some things are not because of climate change. For example, if we look at the history of Pakistan, we had a devastating flood in 1961, in 1992, in 2010 we were underwater, 1/3 of the country was underwater. Then we had a small scale of flood in 2011. Then Balochistan was flooded in 2019 where 40,000 people actually had suffered in the catchment. I actually have this report of WHO. If the camera can show it actually here, it shows like 20 February 2019, 40,000 people were affected and about 300 died. Yes, there is a part of climate change in the rapid increase of rainfall all over the world, and in some part of the world there is a heat wave. But if we look at our history, we are still lacking the very basics, and we are suffering from floods.
Because you say we are lacking the very basics. What are those very basics that we lack?
In the 75 history of Pakistan, we never have the accurate and the correct data collection, and we never made any flood risk management maps. We don't have hazard maps, we don't have vulnerability maps, we don't have risk maps. We don't know where the water will go and where the water will not go. And people are not being educated by those responsible institutes. We have so many institutes, the Flood Forecasting Department, we have WAPDA, we have this Pakistan Meteorological Department, but I never see any of these maps. You know, with the latest technology nowadays we have, if we look at these Western countries, the first world countries, they have mapped for next 200 years what's going to happen. But we are unaware of that because we have never even tried to map those plains. The problem we are saying in Balochistan is that once the water starts from the India, it comes to the Pakistan, and in Pakistan it's in KPK, it comes to Punjab, then Sindh, and then from Gujarat it goes inside the Balochistan. We cannot stop the water because it's natural, it has to go down from upstream to the downstream. We have to create a lot of levees and a lot of small storage dams in the Balochistan, because if we build mega dams on upper part of the Indus, it's not going to stop this issue. Imagine this, you have this dam and it is 100 feet, you build another one of 100 feet, you make multiple dams, but the sediment starts to settle. Let's say the sediment is 20 feet. The capacity of the dam is now 80 feet. So the water is going to jump from the 100 foot of hydraulic, the hydraulic jump. It's going to be massive. Then you increase the height of the wall. We have increased the Tarbela and Mangla, and they're silting and silting and silting. Their capacity is getting decreased. So the hydraulic jump is increasing and it's not helping. So the need of the hour is that we build a lot of levees and reservoirs. Unfortunately, people in Balochistan aren't that much educated by the municipality or by the local government.
This is a very interesting question that you put in. Before I go to the water storage, Abdullah, I'd like to understand that in communities where, as you said, people are not very educated or people don't understand the mechanics of something like a flood or something like rains or the devastation that they could cause, what measures need to be taken by governments or the locals or the organizations such as the NDMA or the PDMA, so that they can be made to understand? Let me tell you, a lot of people don't have access to internet.
Exactly.
Maybe a lot even don't have access to television.
Exactly.
So then how do you tell them what to do, when to do, and how to do?
Okay, so being underdeveloped country, or we are still not
Developing country.
We are developing. Okay, so the thing is, we have seen the era when we didn't have that much of technology. I think you have seen it in your childhood. We were not into this world of internet or everything, if we don't talk about the young generation.
All right.
So at that time, we knew how to give warnings to the people, right?
Right.
We had people, we had those sirens, we had those maps. I think
Through mosques,
through mosques, and there was a lot of other things. For example, the first thing that must be done is, I think it's the responsibility of me, all the scientists and all the engineers, instead of sitting in their room, they have to go out before flooding. The approach should be proactive. Pre-flooding, we should not be reactive, that we go and we give aid. For example, if someone is sick, he ate something bad from outside and he has food poisoning, what can we do now? We can do nothing. We just have to give them aid.
Exactly.
It has to be taken care before.
So should have
he doesn't do it. Yes.
The wrong food. I mean, that is
Yes.
the same that should be applied as far as rains and devastation and monsoons are concerned. But you talked about, the water that trickles from India into Pakistan. But this time, what has happened is it has been excessive. It has rained excessively, and that is what has called this reaction. You talk about, Abdullah, the water reservoirs. Water reservoirs, there needs to be, as you yourself said, talked about the mechanics of water reservoirs and how high they should be and how they should be built. How long do you feel that can be done, and how easy or difficult a task it is in your point of view in areas where it has never been attempted?
Okay. I think if we look at, I want to talk in a really layman kind of example, so that everybody can understand.
All right.
If you build a house from scratch, it's easy to build it and easy to do the inner renovation or something. But if you have a house which is already built and you have to demolish it or just do the renovation of inside, you want to change the bathroom from here to there, or you want to move the kitchen, you want to increase the space of your room, it's going to take more effort, right? So I think to start from there, from totally scratch, and with the latest technology, it will be great. So it will be more easier. I will give you a practical example from Lahore. This year, we didn't see that much of flooding in Lahore, and we have so much rainfall. Why? They have started to build those underground water storage tanks.
All right.
And a very successful experiment has been done in Islamabad as well.
Okay.
So now they're trying to store that massive and excessive rainfall in the cities, and you take that water, you purify it and put it into the ground. So it's a blessing. You will recharge your groundwater level. In Lahore, it is around 400 feet. Imagine you use that water and you bring it to the 350.
Exactly. And a lot of people use the underground wells also for water in their own houses.
Exactly.
So that could also be used
that
for
is
them.
To that. So you have to draw those patterns from where the water is coming, from where the water will go. If you have that map, that flood risk management map is there, that will tell you for what is going to happen for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20, 50, 100, 200. That will tell you about a mega event in every a specific span of year that you will put. Then you will know, okay, if the water has to go from here, we should not build any house or any housing societies. For example, I give you a very simple example. I gave it on the previously. If you look at these old sectors of Islamabad, they never get flooded, but the new ones are getting flooded.
True.
Why? The reason is very simple. The hydrological study was done, the flood risk management plan was being done for these old sectors. You see, there's so much greenery. There's so much drainages for rainfall drainages. In Urdu we say barsati nalas, and that's why they save us from this. You know actually what the real purpose of park? The real purpose of park is not for entertainment or for public to go out. Its real purpose is to suck the water into the ground and do not let it stand. But if we will not have enough parks and we will have just houses and roads, we will just make a concrete jungle of our cities. The water will have nowhere to go and it will just stand there.
So what you mean to say is that for all future construction, whether it be in the capital cities, in big cities or in small cities,
in Balochistan,
everything needs to be done with respect to what could happen in case of a flood, in case of rains, in case of any kind of accumulation of water, and how that could be drained out in a way that not only is it stored in the right places, but also these houses are not affected. Balochistan, Abdullah, you know, is huge, is a huge area, and a lot of people are farmers there. The fact remains that a lot of people have also lost their crops, they have lost their animals, their cattle in these rains as well. But this said, they don't want to displace themselves from the areas or from the places where they have been living since generations. Now you talked about, you know, that everything needs to be managed in such a manner that the areas through which the water flows should not be, should not have any hurdle whatsoever. How to convince these people?
It's very simple. This water scarcity, climate change or flooding for Pakistan is a bigger threat than terrorism, to be honest. So when there were some these kind of operations we had in the past, and thanks to Pak Army that now we are safe and they did a brilliant job, they told those people, I still remember IDPs, we used to call them, internally displaced persons, they moved. Just like that, we have to tell them and convince them, look, if you build a house on the center of a Kashmir highway, after a few minutes, a truck will just run over you. And
basically,
you will
it's
keep
the same
time.
concept, but in environmental.
Environmental, exactly. That's why I use a lot of layman examples for every person to understand, because not everyone can understand that technical language, and our goal is combined is to educate our people so that they do not suffer and they actually learn. Because there is a rule, I tell this so often, around 100 meters on each side, so it becomes like a 200 meter of a radius in Germany, you cannot construct anything because that place actually belongs to the water.
All right. This is interesting that you mentioned Germany, because a couple of months back we saw visuals of floods within Germany, and that was also unprecedented. They did not understand how this happened. So climate change is not only playing havoc with countries such as Pakistan, but also with countries such as Germany, that you yourself say are extremely prepared for any such eventuality. So then how can one prepare oneself for eventualities that we do not know could happen or might happen?
Okay, so like I started my conversation that we are lacking the very basics. We still didn't dig, we didn't start our building, we didn't even dig the hole to start a building, and we're thinking about what's going to happen, how much will be the wind pressure when we will be at the 50th floor. In Germany, okay, the models are not 100%. You have to train them. If you read their news of DW News, like in PTV is their official, they accepted that they didn't train their model. With the changing climate, with the change in the precipitation, in the rainfall, you have to train your model. Now it's raining less or more. So the same river goes to the Netherlands, but they predicted it beforehand. They've warned the Germans, but Germans were like, no, we are Germans, we are great. So they suffered, but the Dutch didn't.
All right.
So again, it comes to your flood risk management map. It's like the weather stations that we have.
All right.
If we predict them good, for example, 70-80% times it's perfect. They tell us tomorrow is going to rain, it does rain. But sometimes it doesn't, because we're not God. We cannot play with nature.
Of course, we cannot play with nature.
The thing with the Pakistan, I wanted to just add, I'm sorry.
Please go ahead.
We still don't have the basics. Maybe Germany suffered once, but we suffer every year. For example, if you look at Karachi, why is it suffering? Why nobody's talking about it?
That is so true.
That's why we're
Pakistan
suffering
has
from
suffered
basic.
and has suffered this year as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to go to a short break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. I'm Khalid and we're discussing the floods, the devastation caused by it, and the management that needs to be done on different levels. We've been joined by Abdullah Deol, who's a water scientist at UNESCO, and he's with us in the studios. And we were talking to him about the different models that countries across the world have implemented. And he was telling us how in Europe some countries did the necessary at the time and others didn't, which led to devastation in those countries as well. And we were citing the example of Germany. Abdullah, when you talk of risk assessment or risk management when it comes to monsoons or when it comes to rains or any other climate change affected calamity, is it an expensive thing to do? Is it something that takes a lot of time? How can one establish such models in a country like Pakistan?
First of all, it is not expensive. It is actually cheaper than the aid we give to people every year. If you look at the entire model, economical model or the effects that happen, it is extremely cheaper. For example, nowadays we're worried about the price of the dollars. There's a hike, increase and decrease. But we're not talking about the animals that have died. There's going to be malnutrition. We will have a shortage of meat. We will have a shortage of so many crops. What we're going to do? And then there will be probably some people might be selling donkeys and people will make fun of people in Lahore. Oh guys, you need this. But this is a reality. And I think this is something we should be more worried about, what's happening in the stock exchange. So when you look at this, and when you look at the people that died, and you look at the mental health and the physical health,
so the best option
is to
and of course not that expensive an option is to create such models that could estimate when and how a calamity could happen, and then accordingly you prepare the people in those areas so that they are the devastation that we've seen this year. And as you also mentioned at the beginning of the show, in the last few decades as well, does not happen in the future. Before we come to you, we have Mir Salam, who's our correspondent from Quetta, who's joining us. Mir Salam, thank you very much to have joined us. Mir Salam, what is the situation as far as Balochistan and Quetta is concerned, as far as the rains are? Is it still raining in Quetta and other parts of Balochistan?
Yeah, can you hear me? Your voice is little coming. As far as I concerned, I understand your question. That luckily today there is no rain reported across all over the Balochistan almost. So there are many steps there in the monsoon recent spell. Province of Balochistan is passing monsoon fourth spell during last 2 months. But this fourth spell makes a devastating, which proves more devastating in shape of human life, and now death toll rise up to 225 and score are injured, and billion rupees of properties are damaged so far. Communication links are also very disturbed by these torrential rains and floods. Communication between Quetta, Balochistan to the other provinces like Sindh, Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa are also badly affected, or partially there is slow traffic to these provinces. now come to the rescue, which is the most important thing. The rescue and relief operation with the help of the Pak Army, FC Balochistan, are underway in the full scale, and many people are rescued by these rescue operations. Corps Commander 12 Corps, Lieutenant General Asif Ofur is personally visiting the flood-affected area. Last night, he visited the Hazara town, Quetta, which was badly affected by the strong floods. So he is in the close touch with the government of Balochistan. CM Balochistan is also taking close eye on this rescue and relief operation. Now the third part is that makes the more devastating, that small scale of many dams are damages due to low quality or any other causes. So Chief Minister Balochistan, Mir Abdul Basanjo, called an inquiry to look after this important issue, because this is a very important issue. Because many dams, small dams, are badly affected or broken, so that makes the more situation worse. Now the third part, government of Balochistan announced to close the educational institution till to 28th August of this month. 1 week they have called to close down this educational institute due to the torrential rain, because the Met Office predicted that more rain will come from tomorrow. This is the fifth spell, which makes the situation more worse. Now, government of Balochistan is also make a deciding role to take the help of international donors like United Nations and other big donor agencies. Yeah.
All right. Mir Salam, you talked about rescue and relief operation in Quetta and other parts of Balochistan. The camps that have been established, the food that is being given to the people in Balochistan, is it enough, or more needs to be done? We know that the army is there and the army is really working 24/7. So is the Pakistan Air Force. There are rescue and relief operations by the Pakistan Air Force that are also happening in Balochistan as we speak. How much more aid is needed by the people of Balochistan, and what could be done by the people of other cities, for example? I know the forces are there, the government is there. Do you feel the people also need to lend a hand and to help those who are devastated by these rains?
As far as concerned, that I can hear you very little, because the communication link, I said the communication link in this road and also the telecom sector are also badly affected. I am not listening your question well, but as far as I concerned, that I understand that you asked about the rescue and relief operation. Yes, Pakistan Army and FC are playing a vital role, and also the Pakistan Air Force. But the major role in Balochistan, the Frontier Corps Balochistan and Pakistan Army, because they have put on the ground. Especially the Frontier Corps Balochistan has all across the Balochistan, they have camps, they have their hospitals. So they are in the front lead. Pakistan Army are also in the front lead to make the rescue and relief operation, which help the government of Balochistan vitally. Because the Balochistan government, this is a true reality that we have. Balochistan has not updated infrastructure. Also, they have lack in their capacity issues in their departmental. So Pakistan Army and FC are in the vital role to make the thing easy for the government of Balochistan. Many operations are underway across all over Balochistan, because there is distances. One thing you can understand, that Balochistan has almost 50% landmark of the Pakistan, and there is enough distance between one district to another district. So there are things worse when the dams are broken, especially the small dams. So that makes things little difficult for the government of Balochistan. So now helicopter will be come to rescue the people. Yeah.
All right. Mir Salam, please stay online with us. We will come back to you very shortly. Please stay with us. Abdullah, you have heard Mir Salam from Quetta telling us about the situation in Balochistan and of course the rescue and relief efforts, the efforts that are being made by the army, by the Pakistan Air Force, by the government. when you look at this, the enormity of these such efforts, and you just talked about the models that we were just talking about.
Can you add a bit about the model thing that you
Yes,
told
yes,
me?
please go ahead.
You just asked me if how cheaper was it. You know what you need? You need just spatial data, like the land data. You need rainfall data. You need the river discharge data, its current, its velocity, and satellite data.
All right.
Not much. You take this data, you put it in a model, it will run. QGIS, it's an open free software for anyone to download it and then map it. So it's that cheap. The only thing which will take time in this is to collect the accurate data. It shouldn't be like you go there and you're feeling tired and you just fill it yourself.
And this is the model that is being used in the West.
This is being used
well.
all over the world.
Okay.
That's how the modeling works. You just train you just put the data in it, and then you train it with time to time. You put rainfall data, you put the spatial, like where are the houses, buildings, and you also put this river discharge and the river bed from where it will go. And then you will run the model and you set the boundary conditions that I want from here to here for this time. It will tell you. And then to map those things, you download QGIS free. It is a free software for anyone to download it. So I think we don't even need that much of funding. So first of all, I would like to thank our army officials for sacrificing their lives and also helping people that are still there. And I think they're the real influencers instead of those that we just see on Instagram.
All right. All right. So we'll continue our conversation, but we have to go back to Mir Salam. Mir Salam, in the rains that are going to happen very shortly, what kind of procedures are in place by the different administrations and governments in Balochistan?
Khalid, you can repeat your question because I am not hearing due to distortion.
Mir Salam, preparations for the upcoming rains.
Yeah, Met Office predicted that from the tomorrow there will be next spell of rain till to the 28th of August. Today, luckily, we have seen sun after long time. Almost across the Balochistan, there was not any enough rain. So today, I have really sigh of relief for the people of Balochistan. But from the tomorrow, next wave of the torrential rain, which will be more stronger than fourth one, according to the Met Office in some parts of the Balochistan. So the government of Balochistan is already in the alert position. PDMA Balochistan, NDMA, Pak Army, FC Balochistan are in alert position already due to these Met Office prediction.
All right. So of course, which means to say that the organizations are ready to counter these rains whenever they happen, if they happen in the next coming days. But the prediction is starting from tomorrow. We wish that the people find some solace, and of course, the efforts of all the organizations concerned bear fruit. Thank you very much, Mir Salam, to have joined us. Bahut shukriya. Coming to, of course, the studios, back to you, Abdullah. Abdullah, for example, I was talking in Balochistan because Balochistan is one of the areas where there is a lot of people are maybe not that educated as in other parts of Pakistan, and it's a huge area compared to the population. The area is really big. In that context, do you feel that the models that you just talked about, the QGIS software and the different estimations for the models, will be different for a province like Balochistan rather than a province like Sindh or Punjab?
Actually, yes. QGIS is basically for modeling. For mapping. For modeling, we have difference. For example, there is a software called Mike Flood, and then we have Hackross, we have Mike 1.1, Mike 2.1. Like for urban flooding, we have different, and for this open area, this is different. You're definitely right. We will, because in, for example, when we'll talk about Karachi, we will not be taking into consider the river because there's no riverine flood. We have the urban flooding, or we have flash flooding, or maybe we have this flooding which is happened because of the blockage of sewage, maybe because the water has nowhere to go. So according to different city, according to different place, there is a different model. However, that's the main components of the data that you need to have in your hand and need to do. I want to show you this, if we can look here.
I think that, what is this?
This is the graph, and I took it from Pakistan Meteorological Department, and it shows from 1661 till 2020. Just 2 years ago, the average rainfall that happened in Pakistan was 377 millimeter.
All right.
And look at this graph. It is always above the 300 millimeter, which after 300 millimeter, it's always called as a hazard or an emergency situation, like internationally. So if you look at these patterns, I hardly see any climate change. Are we suffering from climate change since our independence? I think there is an issue. It is an issue. I told you, it is an issue. But if we look here, we are still lacking the basics. We're lacking the basics. So I think we should use our soldiers to collect the data instead of having them there and doing.
No, but they are helping the people.
Of course, no one is denying that. But I think that will be more helpful. For example, we had a policy to build nuclear this country, and so many governments came and went. But we were stick to it, and we as a nation did it. So I think the need of the hour is that the institute take a decision that we're going to do it, no matter who comes in power. We're going to make the map, we're going to build it, we're going to make the dikes, we're going to do whatever is necessary to make Pakistan flood-proof. So that's the thing that must be done. That's what I'm talking about.
So we need to make Pakistan future-proof, and I think it's very important in the current context of whatever we've seen over years. We have been seeing from the different provinces, especially from Balochistan and then from Sindh and Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa as well, whether it be the situation that is critical in Muzaffargarh as the Indus water level rises, whether it be the dams that have been affected, the infrastructure that has been affected, people, their cattle, their crops that have been affected. We need to make, it will take some time, I think, I'm sure, Abdullah, but the fact remains that we need to start a strategy from right now, so that in the next years we do not face the same calamities or the after effects of calamities whenever and if they happen, this way that we have seen it today, this year and also in the previous years, as you also mentioned.
Imagine if it has to take 10 years. If you start today, then it's going to take 10 years. If you're going to start after 20 years, it's going to take 30 years.
That is
so
true.
We need to start. And you know what? We have to change with the time and with the technology. We have to adopt the things. The CEO of Nokia once cried and he said, we didn't do anything wrong, but we lost because we didn't change ourselves with time. And now we see smartphones.
I think that's a very good way to end today's show. We need to update ourselves, and we need to go with the times as far as the technology is concerned, because, ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains that it is technology. It is the new resources that are on our doorstep, whether it concerns climate change, whether it concerns rains, or the models that we've discussed with Abdullah, that would change the way we not only map these floods, these rains, but also the way we deal with climate change, including floods and rains in Pakistan. We have, by the grace of Allah Almighty, all the organizations there in place, whether it be the army, the Pakistan Armed Forces, the government, the levies, the frontier constabulary, or even the local administration and the different governments, provincial and national, that are helping out, that are as one to help those people. Let's hope the calamities end, and let's hope that we also try to move forward in a way so that these calamities do not happen in the future as well. Till then, we will continue to update you as and when anything happens and how our governments are dealing with these calamities. Allah Hafiz, and God bless Pakistan.